Good day, everyone. I believe that you are already prepared and excited to show off your talents and skills for today's performance test. Therefore, I now officially give you the spotlight to show us what you've got, Miss Jensen Nicole Otter. A round of applause.
I struggled scribbling this letter to form words. She's ashamed of what happened. Never in my wildest dreams I would tell you how painful it is to be touched without permission. Holding my bag, wearing blue skirt and white blouse, grabbed my hand and hushed. Gripped my mouth so I couldn't shout. Closed your eyes while feeling aroused. I asked, how? How can you lay a finger in someone's mind? Twitched her innocence with so much ineffable fear, making her put malice in everyone's calloused hand. Beautiful, dirty, freaked out. Nights spent sleeplessly. Haunted by monsters she's scared of the window might come out. Glued in her is your quiver thoughts. But I'm sorry I couldn't tell you exactly what I knew. I know you dream of some epiphany I wouldn't give you. She just wants some glimpse of relief. And here is your own dose with no signs of millet blues. Your dark calloused hand.
Thank you for that wonderful performance, Miss Otter.
For our next performance, let us all welcome the lovely Jennifer Deagle for her talent. Please give her a round of applause.
I wanna make you smile whenever you're sad. Carry around when your arthritis is bad. All I wanna do is grow old with you. I'll get your medicine when your tummy aches. Build your fire if the furnace breaks. Oh, it could be so nice growing old with you. I'll miss you, kiss you, give you my coat when you are cold. Need you, feed you, even let you hold the remote control. So let me do the dishes in our kitchen sink. Put you to bed when you have too much to drink. Oh, I could be the man or the woman who grows old with you. Patatawanin kita pag hindi ka masaya. Bubuhatin kita pag nirayuma ka na. O kay sarap isipin kasama kang tumanda. Ibibili ng balot pag mahina na tuhod. Ikukuha ng gamot pag sumakit ang likod. O kay sarap isipin kasama kang tumanda. At nangangako sa'yo pag sinagot mong oo, iaalay sa'yo buong puso ko. Sumang-ayon ka naman kasama kang tumanda.
What a lovely voice from a lovely lady. Thank you, Miss Jennifer.
What you just witnessed is an example of what we call performance task. What is a performance task? From the word itself, a performance task is any learning activity or assessment that asks students to perform to demonstrate their knowledge, understanding, and proficiency. It yields a tangible product or performance that serves as evidence of learning, meaning to say, in a performance task, the output itself is a tangible product or the performance itself.
Performance task enables teachers to gauge student understanding and proficiency with complex processes, not just measure discrete knowledge. It is also well suited to integrating subject areas and linking content knowledge with the 21st century skills, critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, communication, and technology use.
Let us now proceed to the 7 general characteristics of performance tasks. First, performance tasks call for the application of knowledge and skills, not just recall or recognition. In other words, the learner must actually use their learning to perform. These tasks typically yield a tangible product, for example, graphic display and blog post, or performance, like oral presentation and debate, that serves as evidence of their understanding and proficiency. Second, performance tasks are open-ended and typically do not yield a single correct answer. Unlike selected or brief constructed response items that seek a right answer, performance tasks are open-ended. Thus, there can be different responses to the task that still meet success criteria. These tasks are also open in terms of process, because there is typically not a single way of accomplishing the task. The third one, performance tasks establish novel and authentic context for performance. These tasks present realistic conditions and constraints for students to navigate. For example, a mathematics task would present students with a never-before-seen problem that cannot be solved by simply plugging in numbers into a memorized algorithm. In an authentic task, students need to consider goals, audience, obstacles, and options to achieve a successful product or performance. Authentic tasks have a side benefit. They convey purpose and relevance to students, helping learners see a reason for putting forth effort in preparing for them. The fourth general characteristic states that performance tasks provide evidence of understanding via transfer. Understanding is revealed when students can transfer their learning to new and messy situations. But let us all note that not all performances require transfer. For example, playing a musical instrument by following the notes or conducting a step-by-step science lab require minimal transfer. In contrast, rich performance tasks are open-ended and call higher-order thinking and a thoughtful application of knowledge and skills in context rather than a scripted or formulaic performance.
The fifth characteristic of performance tasks is performance tasks are multifaceted. Unlike traditional test items that typically assess a single skill or fact, performance tasks are more complex. They involve multiple steps and thus can be used to assess several standards or outcomes. Sixth is performance tasks can integrate 2 or more subjects as well as 21st century skills. In the wider world, beyond the school, most issues and problems do not present themselves neatly within a subject area. While performance tasks can certainly be content-specific, they also provide a vehicle for integrating 2 or more subjects and are weaving in 21st century skills and habits of mind. One natural way of integrating subjects is to include a reading, research, and communication component. For example, writing, graphics, oral or technology presentations to tasks in content areas like social studies, science, health, business, physical education, and etc. Such tasks encourage students to see meaningful learning as integrated rather than something that occurs in isolated school subjects and segments. Lastly, performances on open-minded tasks are evaluated with established criteria and rubrics. Since these tasks do not yield a single answer, student products and performances should be judged against appropriate criteria aligned to the goals being assigned. Clearly defined and aligned criteria enable defensible, judgment-based evaluation. More detailed scoring rubrics based on criteria are used to profile varying levels of understanding and proficiency.
Now we have the types of performance tasks or performance-based activities proposed by Melissa Kelly. First, we have presentations or reports. One easy way to have students complete a performance-based activity is to have them do a presentation or report of some kind. This activity could be done by students, which takes time, or in collaborative groups. The basis for the presentation may be one of the following: providing information, teaching a skill, reporting progress, or persuading others. Students may choose to add in visual aids or a PowerPoint presentation or Google Slides to help illustrate elements in their speech. Presentations work well across the curriculum as long as there is a clear set of expectations for students to work with from the beginning. Then we have portfolios. Student portfolios can include items that students have created and collected over a period. Art portfolios are for students who want to apply to art programs in college. Another example is when students create a portfolio of their written work that shows how they have progressed from the beginning to the end of class. The writing in a portfolio can be from any discipline or a combination of disciplines. Some teachers have students select those items they feel represents their best work to be included in a portfolio. The benefit of an activity like this is that it is something that grows over time and is therefore not just completed and forgotten. A portfolio can provide students with a lasting selection of artifacts that they can use later in their academic career. Reflections may be included in student portfolios, in which students may make a note of their growth based on the materials in the portfolio. Another type of performance task is performance or performances. Dramatic performances are one kind of collaborative activities that can be used as a performance-based assessment. Students can create, perform, and/or provide a critical response. Examples include dance, recital, dramatic enactment. There may be prose or poetry interpretation. This form of performance-based assessment can take time, so there must be a clear pacing guide. Students must be provided time to address the demands of the activity. Resources must be readily available and meet all safety standards. Students should have opportunities to draft stage work and practice. Developing the criteria and the rubric and sharing this with students before evaluating a dramatic performance is critical.
Another type of performance task is projects. Projects are commonly used by teachers as performance-based activities. They can include everything from research papers to artistic presentations of information learned. Projects may require students to apply their knowledge and skills while completing the assigned task. They can be aligned with higher levels of creativity, analysis, and synthesis. Students might be asked to complete reports, diagrams, and maps. Teacher can also choose to have students work individually or in groups. Journals may be part of a performance-based activities or assessment. Journals can be used to record student reflections. Teachers may require students to complete journal entries. Some teacher may use journal as a way to record participation. Journal is an example of a project that will be given by teacher to students. Another is exhibits and fairs. Teachers can expand their ideas of performance-based activities by creating exhibits or fairs for students to display their work. Examples include things like history fairs to art exhibits. Students work on a product or item that will be exhibited publicly. Exhibitions show in-depth learning and may include feedback from the viewers. In some cases, students might be required to explain or defend their work to those attending the exhibition. Some fairs, like science fairs, could include the possibility of prizes and awards. The last type of performance task that we have is Debate. A debate in the classroom is one form of performance-based learning that teaches students about varied viewpoints and opinions. Skills associated with debate include research, media and argument literacy, reading comprehension, evidence evaluation, public speaking, and civic skills. There are many different formats for debate. One is the fishbowl debate, in which a handful of students form a circle or a half circle facing the other students and debate a topic. The rest of the classmates may pose questions to the panel. Another form is a mock trial, where teams representing the prosecution and defense take on the roles of attorneys and witnesses. A judge or judging panel oversees the courtroom presentation.
To conclude, performance-based activities can be challenging for students to complete. They need to understand from the beginning exactly what is being asked of them and how they will be assessed. Examples and models may help, but it is more important to provide detailed criteria that will be used to assess the performance-based assessment. All criteria should be addressed in a scoring rubric. Observations are an important component and can be used to provide students with feedback to improve performance. Teachers and students can both use observations, and there may be peer-to-peer student feedback. There could be a checklist or a tally to record student achievement. The goal of performance-based learning should be to enhance what the students have learned, not just have them recall facts.
It is important for educators to know the different types of learners in order to gain better perspective on how to implement learning styles into their lesson plans and study techniques. Moreover, it also allows educators to search for the most effective ways to reach certain students, particularly those with behavioral or learning difficulties. Before we tackle about the different performance tasks for diverse learners, let us first learn about the different types of learners. First, we have auditory and musical learners. These types of learners seem to respond more favorably to sound and are able to remember more when they listen to information. Auditory learners like to hear solutions and examples explained to them, and may gravitate towards music subjects and group learning as a way to understand information. They often have a high aptitude for distinguishing notes and tones in music and speech. They might say words out loud to better learn them. To handle these learners, your key is your voice. You can record your lessons for later reference and sit them away from distractions. Qualities often associated with auditory learners include possessing a good ear for music and tones, likes to talk to self, hum, and sing. Next is visual and spatial learners. These learners prefer information presented visually rather than spoken. They like diagrams, drawing out concepts, charts, and processes. They learn by looking at visual concepts. They might be organized or creative in their application and find things like colors and shapes useful. To engage a visual learner in the classroom, you will want to include elements like maps, diagrams, and imagery. Other tactics you can include are sitting visual learners near the front, using color codes and cues, encouraging note-taking and recopying notes during study. In addition, visual learners often possess the following qualities: habitual dawdlers, observant, not easily distracted, enjoys planning, and prefers visual instruction. Then we have verbal learners. Verbal learning includes both writing and speaking. This type of learners might have a preference for reading and writing, word games, and poems. They know the meanings of a broad category of words, can use effectively, and actively seek out new words to add to the repertoire. Verbal learners will want to write down notes, talk about concepts, and potentially present them as well. The trick with verbal learners is that knowing what adjacent types of learning could apply to them. Some qualities associated with verbal learners include intellectual, bookworm, and good storyteller. Next is logical and mathematical learners. Logical learners look for patterns and trends in what they learn. They search for the connections, the reasons, and results. These learners greatly appreciate any type of learning that logically explains the subject at hand. Some qualities associated with mathematical learners include pattern recognition, good with numbers, and predisposition towards grouping and classification.
Continuing on with another type of learner, we have physical and kinesthetic learners. They are commonly called hands-on learner that emphasizes a type of learning by doing rather than merely sitting and listening to a teacher explaining concepts. They prefer to physically engage with the materials of the subject matter. Some qualities associated with physical learners includes preference to get their hands dirty. They are energetic, action-oriented and outgoing, but they may also deprioritize reading and writing. Because physical learners tend to move a lot while learning and they also have excellent physical memory, there are some strategies to engage physical learners. That includes encouraging movement during study and decluttering desks and surfaces so they can focus on learning. Next is the social and interpersonal learners. These social learners show preference towards group and collaboration. Some, but not all, will gravitate towards leadership within a group. To engage a social learner, encourage both group collaboration and presentation. You can also consider doing role-playing historical events or works of literature, collaboration on math problems, working as a class on comprehension questions. Some of the qualities often associated with this type of learner include extroverted, good communicator, and sensitive and empathetic. The seventh type of learner is a solitary and interpersonal learner. These learners can be visual, auditory, physical, verbal, or logical learners. Fulfilling all the needs of the solitary student will ensure they are fully engaged. Some of the qualities often associated with this type of learner include independent, introspective, and private. Lastly, we have the natural or nature learners. These are learners who do best when interacting with the nature. They seem to respond best to a more peaceful and natural type of learning. Some ideas of bringing out the best in these students include doing hands-on experiments, conducting some classes outdoors, and using examples from nature. Again, we have the 8 types of learners: the auditory and musical learners, visual and spatial learners, verbal learners, logical and mathematical learners, physical and kinesthetic learners, social and interpersonal learners, solitary and interpersonal learners, and lastly, the natural or nature learners.
Let us have a glimpse about differentiated assessment. In the teaching field, at its most basic level, differentiation consists of the efforts of teachers to respond to the diversity of students in the classroom. When we say differentiated assessment, it is the way by which teachers modify and match assessments with the varied characteristics and profiles of students in order to meet the students' individual needs, thereby enhancing their learning and boosting their ability to show what they have learned. As we all know, students differ in their previous learning experiences, readiness, learning styles, preferences, academic standing, abilities, strengths and weaknesses, race, culture, and backgrounds. By differentiating assessment, teachers help diverse students to successfully demonstrate their competencies in particular ways that are effective for them. By providing various assessment methods and activities appropriate for particular types of students, the teachers are able to meet the students' individual needs, thereby helping them to be successful in their learning.
Now, what can teachers differentiate? Teachers can differentiate content. Content means the knowledge, understanding, and skills that the students need to learn. That's according to Tomlinson and Imbio. As we know, a class is composed of diverse learners. That's why we always have to bear in our minds to cater them despite the challenges that may arise. With this fact, teachers may differentiate content. Now, what specifically can teachers differentiate in terms of content? They can differentiate the methods that the students will use to access key content. Now, how are we going to do this? Consider this one. Now, take note that despite this differentiated content, learning goals should still be the same for all the students. Next, we have the process. What does the process mean here? Tomlinson and Imbio defined process as how students come to understand and make sense of the content. These differentiated processes come in sense-making activities that teachers create for the students. In these differentiated processes, students should be able to own the content, meaning that students should be able to learn how it makes sense and how it will be useful outside the classroom. This may involve making mistakes while indulging themselves in and exploring the content, posing questions, and or getting curious about it. Carol Ann Tomlinson said that students need to work in different speeds and in different modes because this will get them challenged. This is where they will learn. After all, learning best happens outside our comfort zones. Now let's go to products. So what do we mean by products here? These are ways for students to demonstrate what they have come to know, understand, and be able to learn after an extended period of learning. We can call this authentic assessment. Students may opt to go for how they want to present their learnings or just let their teachers decide. It can be any output as long as it responds to their learning profiles or what they have learned throughout. Last is the effect or learning environment. It is associated to the effects of students' emotions and feelings on their learning. It is very important to know the students' emotions and feelings to understand the behavior they display. As we know, our behaviors are influenced by our experiences, and this creates our self-concept, thus affecting our motivation and learning process. So what can teachers do here? Teachers may modify the learning environment to meet the effective needs of the students. For example, in a case of a student who doesn't like attention, teachers may put him or her in a group work. Because in group works, it is a culture to be asked for an opinion and be acknowledged. There, if we know something about our students, we can devise ways on how to cater their individual needs while still one with the learning goals. So those are 4 elements of differentiated instruction which can help teachers in designing performance tasks.
Now that we have learned about what teachers can differentiate, the question is, how can teachers differentiate? Allow me to discuss about the basics of differentiation. Content, process, product, and effective or learning environment are key elements of classroom instruction. And the modification of these elements are driven by teachers' assessment of students according to 3 characteristics. This involves readiness, interests, and learning profile. Let's talk about readiness. Tomlinson and Imbio 2010 defined readiness as a student's current proximity to specified knowledge, understanding, and skills. In this area, the teacher considers a student's mental preparedness about a new learning input. Example, when a teacher introduces a topic about resilience, he or she can let his or her students to share their experience about the topic. In alignment with content, the content about the new learning input or lesson or topic should not include extraneous or irrelevant information that would just mess up with the student's thinking. That may include vague concepts. In terms of process, teachers can create flexible groups with varied skill levels, and the product can be aligned to skills. Thus, the goal of readiness differentiation is to make the work a little too difficult for students at a given point in their growth, and then to provide support they need to succeed the new level of challenge. Let's proceed with interest. Tomlinson and Inhu 2010 defined interest as that which engages the attention, curiosity, and involvement of a student. In this area, the teacher arouses interests from students in order to increase the motivation of learning. Example, when teachers look into the passions, hobbies, choices, and preferences of their students. The content can display real-world problems that can stimulate curiosity among students, allowing them to specialize in an area of their interest that can then lead them to creating products that are relevant to their personal interest. The goal of interest differentiation is to help students engage with new information, understanding, and skills by making connections with things that they already find appealing, intriguing, relevant, and worthwhile. Lastly, we have learning profile. Tomlinson and Inhu 2010 defined learning profile as a preference of taking in, exploring, and expressing content. Under this, there are 4 factors that make up a learning profile. We have 1. Gender, 2. Culture, 3. Learning style such as independent or collaborative work, learning in a quiet atmosphere or listening to music, and 4. Intelligence preferences, which can involve Gardner's intelligences, verbal linguistic, musical rhythmic, spatial or naturalist, and etc., and also Sternberg's intelligences, analytical, creative, and practical preferences. All these 4 work together to affect how a child learns. The content can be of audio and or visual presentation, encouraging independence from students or activating strengths and styles among students. And the product of this can take into consideration multiple intelligence, learning style, gender, and culture. Thus, the goal of learning profile is to teach in the ways students learn best and to extend ways in which they can learn effectively.
While teachers are encouraged to differentiate their performance tasks whenever possible and appropriate, it is important to consider these 3 quotients. First, we must always keep in mind that our aim is to engage learning in authentic and meaningful learning, and to collect appropriate evidence of that learning, not to simply offer a cool menu of product and performance possibilities. Second, the options we provide must be worth the time and energy required. Since performance tasks typically require time to plan and implement, we should reserve them for the most valued learning goals. A teacher have said, with performance tasks, the juice must be worth the squeeze. Third and last, feasibility must be considered. Ideally, we must wish to individualize all major assignments and performance tasks, but realistically, we only have so much time and energy. Therefore, educators must be judicious in determining when it is important to offer a product and performance options. Educators must be able to strike a balance between a single path and a maze of options that would be impossible to manage. To wrap it up, despite the challenges of differentiating performance tasks and assessment in general, the efforts provided by educators to offer options within performance tasks are well worth it. When students are given appropriate choices or worthy tasks, they are more likely to put forth effort and experience a genuine sense of accomplishment for a job well done. Thank you.